today. I'm Ayo Myro Essay. It's 7:31 a.m. and time for today's edition of Freshly Pressed 981. Joining me to analyze today's stories, I have Olakunle Yusuf. Good morning, Olakunle Yusuf. Great to have you on the show.
Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, Lagos. It's good to be here again this week.
Brilliant. Why are you whispering to us this morning? Good morning, Lagos. We want the fire in your voice. All right, this is how you can be a part of the conversation if you're listening to us online. YouTube is youtube.com, search for Smooth 981 FM Lagos. And if you'd like to use the chat box option, that's fine. We'll search for you there. Or if you'd rather send us a WhatsApp message, then please, by all means, send your message to 0809 444 0981. All right, Lakun, we'll just get straight into our first story for today. That is, the federal government makes COVID-19 vaccination card mandatory for civil servants from December 1. This is a This Day report. It's quite brief, so we're going to join it to the Punch report, which has responses from some stakeholders. The federal government has said all its workers will be required to show proof of COVID-19 vaccination with effect from December 1, 2021. The Secretary to the Government of the Federation, who is also Chairman, Presidential Steering Committee on COVID-19, Mr. Boss Mustafa, announced the new policy decision on Wednesday at the PSC briefing. He said if you don't want to get vaccinated, then public servants will have to present a negative COVID-19 PCR test result done within 72 hours to gain access to their offices in all locations, not just in Nigeria, but also countries' foreign missions. What do you make of this, Lakumi?
Okay, so I've looked at it from two perspectives. One, the legality of it. Is the committee, the Presidential Task Force, or even the government, do they have the legal powers to do this? If I challenge this as a federal civil servant, do I have a case to say that you can't force me to take the vaccine?
Well, they're not forcing you to take the vaccine.
That's what I'm saying. That's a perspective, because that's where it's going to end up. So people say I'm not taking, and you are saying I can't come to work. The good news is that the directive does not say if you don't come to work, we will sack you or we will force you to retire or whatever. It just means that you cannot have access to government offices. Having said that, now the real issue itself is this. Before you make this kind of pronouncement, how much of these vaccines are available for people? As of yesterday, for example, this is not even a federal government, in Oyo State in Ibadan, I was speaking with someone, a family member, and she said when they went for the vaccine, where they went to, one of the PCs they went to, they were told that they were only going to give only 25 people for the day. Okay, so it suggests either of two things. One, the people who are administering were lazy and didn't want to work, or they don't have enough to go around.
I would think it's probably the latter.
Exactly. So if we have that kind of situation in Oyo State, okay, we can imagine what it would be in other places in the country as well. Okay, so that's one angle to it. Now, the other bit of it now is that to say that it's a matter of right. Now, for example, do I have a right to say I don't want to take? So if I don't take, is my right superior to the right of the person who says I don't want to be in the same with the person who has not taken, who exposed me to contracting the disease? That's another thing that everybody in this country. But bottom line, I don't think that we have done enough as a people to convince ourselves morally why we should take these things. We should take this vaccine. We should argue for science much more about anything else. Much of what we've been hearing is about some unverified claims about so many things. And there's nobody out there from the government side with all media, whatever, in their possession, to try to beat down all these other arguments, to make people realize that this is science at work. It's just the same way some people resisted using cars when they were using horses when cars came. They preferred horses to cars. Things will happen. Exactly. So we need superior arguments as to every other claims that comes about this thing, that simply that this is science. Now we're talking about cure for sickle cell. Before now, we understood what the people used to think sickle cell was. Now science has told us that it is not so. It is purely about the makeup of the human body. So this is the kind of argument we should be having for things like this that would help us. And then the next is that we should not politicize it. To some point, in my view, I think that we have politicized it so much that we have left the real issue, the health and safety of people. We have left it out. We're now looking at it from the angle of politics, and that is so unfortunate. Now, to make this come home very well, my neighbor's children's school was closed down in Lagos, I think 2 weeks ago. It's one of the biggest schools in Lagos, and they were having a fun day or a club day, and Lagos state government officials randomly went there, and they did random tests in the school. They found that I think 2 or 3 children were COVID positive. They had to shut the school down like 2-3 weeks ago, and they sent everybody home. The school is going to make cost in testing all the teachers. Every parent is going to test all their children now. And when they resume back in 2 weeks' time, like my neighbor said, in 2 weeks' time, they're going to go back with a certificate of a negative PCR test. So that the virus is real is nothing to contest. The thing is
Even
that
though some people are still contesting that.
exactly, we should not contest. I mean, that's part of what I'm saying, that the effort that we need to put into convincing people, first, to accept that it exists, 2, that it kills, 3, that there is a vaccine that can prevent you from ultimately dying. Because of course it says that even though you've taken the vaccine, you can still contract it. But so those are the kind of arguments we need to put on the table for people to understand that this thing is there, and there is need for us to fight it in all the ways possible. So I will appeal to government to say, look, let us spend more time convincing people rather than enforcing it on people to go and take.
Exactly. All right. Let's take a few comments from Shine, from some people on WhatsApp. I'll start with Shai from Lipeju. I'm still wondering where all this vaccination mandate is coming from. Is this because some societies do this that we're also following in their footsteps? When there are not even enough vaccines in the first place, going to what you said, luckily, why do we put the cart before the horse like this? Tunji says federal workers are required to either take the vaccines or present a negative COVID test every 72 hours. Yes, we mentioned that. Christian says, I think government have the responsibility to demand that whoever wishes to access public offices to show evidence that they do not carry an infectious sickness capable of harming someone else. And then Timothy says, good morning. Please let me know why, if after vaccinations double dose, you still need to wear a nose or face mask. Is this vaccination 100% potent against prevention? After forcing me to take a vaccination, if I become positive, against who do I hold? No, Timothy, I'm actually glad you're asking these kinds of questions, because we need to break it down. And Lakune mentioned it when he was speaking, that the vaccine does not mean that you are totally off, you're not going to be at risk of contracting the virus. What it means is that the effect on you would not be as dire as if you hadn't gotten the vaccine. So you probably might present little or no symptoms. And we have heard of people, as in the case of Mr. Williams, Laddie Williams, who passed away. So it's not a guarantee, but the risks are definitely significantly reduced.
Let me also quickly say that no vaccine is 100%.
Exactly.
What it does not, you are still going to come in contact with people. You are still going to exchange body fluids with people. So it means that even though you have taken the vaccine, the virus can still enter your body. What the vaccine is supposed to do is to trigger your immune system to be able to fight it. In some people, it will fight it and the person will survive it. In some people, because we have been told that people who have underlying ailments, the heart diseases, the liver infections, the kidney, whatever, and so on and so forth, those things might limit the ability of the vaccine to help you fight it. So it is so important that despite the fact that you've taken the vaccine, you still take all the protocols that have been put out there for us to follow.
So the rationale for encouraging as many people as possible to take the vaccine is that if we're all vaccinated, then the chances of us contracting, spreading becomes a lot less, and so it means that less people would have to die from from COVID. I think we're going to take this in more detail during Lagos Talks because I don't think we're going to leave here. And one of the things I'd like us to just look at when we do talk during Lagos Talks 901, we start at 8:10, is that should vaccines be made mandatory, obviously, and the obvious question, then what more should the federal government do to push more people to getting vaccinated in terms of awareness raising, making vaccines more available? Then I would also like to do a quick poll. If you have not been vaccinated, I'd like you to call us then and tell us why not. So we take a sample of opinions of people why they're reluctant to taking the vaccine. So do call at 8:10. I'll take Adebayo from Ajuwon before we go on to the next story. It says, good morning, House. I was supposed to be vaccinated on September 1 at Akute Health Center. That's over 1 month ago. I have been there 3 times with nobody to attend to us. The government should make the vaccine available and less cumbersome to access. So Akute Health Center, I hope
That's Ogun State.
Yes, Open State. I hope people and we have listeners all the way in Akute. Obviously, Mr. Adebayo is one of such. Please let us do something about that. Akute Health Center needs health workers and also vaccines. Premium Times reports 2022 budget. Again, lawmakers withhold details of 134 billion naira allocation despite calls for hashtag open NAS. Federal government has earmarked 134 billion naira for the National Assembly in the 2022 budget. This is contained in the presentation made by the President Muhammadu Buhari on Thursday last week. And although details of the appropriation bill were not immediately made public, a copy of the budget later released by the Ministry of Finance revealed the breakdown of the budget for ministries, departments, and agencies. Now, what this report summarizes is that the National Assembly's budget has gone up from 125 billion to 128 in 2021. And during the approval, the lawmakers upped the budget, and they don't understand the breakdown of this, and we're asking for openness. What's your take on this, Nakuni?
Well, for a government that preaches I'm fighting corruption, and for a National Assembly that has enacted a Freedom of Information Bill, I think that this is a stain on both bodies. If you say that you're fighting corruption, there shouldn't be a problem with making the details available upfront. Now, let's assume that it was an oversight, that it wasn't made available. When people asked for it, you should also make it available for them to see. So here we are. We have made a law of freedom of information. People have asked you for the details of this budget. You are refusing to give it.
Well,
you
not
are
refusing exactly, just giving excuses. Come back today, come back tomorrow.
All of them one word. You are refusing to give it. So I will just want to highlight this. This isn't typical. It's not peculiar to this budget.
Yeah.
One, this is where we had been. The same governments over time will tell the rest of the 200 million people fast and pray for Nigeria. But there are practical things that we need to do. We know that everybody knows, government accepts and says it, that we know to get money, that we are broke. And one of the first things you do, like they say, is that when your source of income reduces, you reduce your lifestyle. So we should also apply this to the governance of this country. If truly we don't have money, then let us reduce the lifestyle and our spending in terms of things like this. Let me just highlight two things from what one of the officials gave as I says that Office of Retired Clerks, 275 million in the budget. For crying out loud, who is Office of Retired Clerks? What office could that ever be? They are civil servants or they are public servants, whichever of them they are. They have retired. They have got their gratuity. They will get their pension. So what is the 275 billion for Office of Retired Clerks? What are they doing in the place? What does that mean? That's one. The second one, 9.6 billion. It's 9.1 billion or 9.6 billion. I'm trying to find it. I think it's 9 billion for general service. What does general service mean? So those are the kind of headings you find in budgets that you ask yourself, what does this mean? Can you break it down? This is part of the reasons why we don't get the breakdown, because we will be able to query all this, and these are the kind of things people in government don't want the citizens to do, to query their positions.
Yeah.
So it's not a new thing. It's something that was inherited, and everybody is reveling it and are digging deeper into it. So that's what we have on our hands.
All right, thank you so very much, Lakunle, for that. Again, like you mentioned, and we talked about anti-graft yesterday when we were looking at setting goals and how well this government has performed, especially since that was one of the big campaign promises of anti-corruption. Going back to the vaccines, I see a number of people have things to say about this. Like I mentioned, we'll talk about this in detail during Lagos Talks 981. We see, but this is quite worrying. Tori from Jesha says, please let help us always shout on this government to do the needful by providing enough vaccine. I know a military hospital where 2,000 plus registered for the vaccine, and the hospital says they have only 25 vaccine shots to give out. That is the reality on ground. All right, let's move on to what's going on in Cano. So Cano orders drug tests for APC contestants, Guardian reports. Ahead of the October 16 State Congress of the All Progressives Congress, APC, Kano State government has directed all contestants seeking the party's executive council position to undergo a mandatory drug test. So from this report, what they've said is that they have a big challenge with drug abuse, and they're trying to tackle this. One of the ways to tackle this and reduce the incidence is to ensure that no one who has a drug problem is in a position of power and authority. And so before you can come to test for a position, go and do a drug test. Is this a good move, and should more people adopt this?
Well, again, I look at it from two perspectives, the legal perspective and the moral. So I'd go with legal first. Unfortunately, I'm not a lawyer, but it gets more interesting when I talk about the legal perspective of things. Okay, so is it within my rights to keep my my abuse problem to myself? Or if I discuss it with my doctor and then somebody can ask me that I must declare it because I want to run for office, is it something that is personal to me? That's one bit of it.
Yeah. How about sports people who have to declare who have to do doping tests even randomly?
Now, that is not governance. That is sports. We may not use the same whip to flog both horses. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just putting out there for us to. I think that lawyers should be able to help us with that whatever, because at the end of the day, where I'm going with that point is this: that at the end of the day, won't the party, I'm looking at the politics of it now, be bogged down with legal issues of you denied me because I refused to take a drug test, not necessarily because I have drug problems.
Okay.
So if anybody at all is denied right to run or aspire to office, I can say I was denied because I refused to take a drug test. You get what I mean? So would that not affect the chances of the party? Would it not scatter the party at some point and distract them from the real thing, winning an election?
Yeah.
That's as far as that goes. The other bit of it is that when you see the numbers that the NDLEA turns out every day, and when particularly Cano State, that is the arrowhead of this story, is always featuring in the top 5 states where the drug problem is highest in Nigeria, you would say good move, right? Because sometimes you look at people in government, you look at the way, even when they use roads with you, the way they drive and ride you off the road.
Yeah.
You ask yourself, is the person driving this car or the person they are chaperoning, are they normal? So you start from simple things like that people who drive them or they themselves are in the cars that are being driven the way they are driven.
Yeah.
You look at them that they must be high on something. So it makes sense to ask them to come forward if you are clean. Okay, so then when we see you misbehave, we know that it is something else that is your problem. Not exactly. So in that regard, I think that it's a good thing to do from the moral perspective. Anyway, many organizations today do, universities do random tests on their students, they do random tests on their lecturers and all that. So if they can maybe just put it into a law or something, it helps to take care of the first concern about the legal whatever of it. So I think that is a good move, and I think that every other state in the country should also copy this move. so that at least we can remove one item of the major problems we have from public space.
All right. Thank you very much. 2021 World Food Day, federal government set aside 600 billion naira loan support for 2.4 million farmers, according to the President Buhari. Guardian reports that the federal government says it has, through the agro-processing productivity enhancement and livelihood improvement support project appeals, set aside 600 billion naira loans to support 2.4 million farmers across the country. Another intervention by this government. What's your please break it down for us and your take on this, Lachlan.
Let me start from the good news in the story.
Please.
The good news is that the federal government, through the minister, is it the minister or the government? So the government representative at the event reported that we have recorded increases in production of maize, rice, and quoted some wonderful numbers: 166% in cattle, beef, dairy, and feed production, 146% and 11% respectively between 2020 and 2021. Okay, so that's the bit of the good news. Now, my concern is, this not another exercise at, like we normally do? We throw money at every problem. If you ask me today, I would say that the biggest problem the Nigerian farmer has is security, because over the last one or two planting seasons, we've had reports from all over the country that farmers are afraid to go to their farms for fear of being kidnapped or being killed. Some who don't go, their farms have been destroyed by cattle herds and so on and so forth. And so this is a resultant effect of the high rise of food products right now in the markets. Okay, so if you give this money to the farmers today, a farmer that are afraid to go to farm and he gets the money, where is the guarantee that he's going to spend the money on the farming? So I think that the first thing that we need to first resolve before we do this money is resolve the security problem. Let us get the farmers back to their farms. I also did some arithmetic and I looked at it. I said, okay, so 600 billion for 2.4 million farmers. That's like an average of about 250,000 naira per farmer if it's a uniform amount you are going to give. Okay, but the details of how the money is going to be shared is not here. Of course, it will depend on what capacity you can get. Is a loan, is an interest loan. But I think that before you throw the money at them, resolve the major problem, which is security. Let us be sure that when you give the money to them, they can actually use it for the farming that it is meant for.
Absolutely. I thank you very much. Very quickly, let's go on to Sage. Budget condemns 700 billion naira National Assembly constituency project in 6 years. So the president has set aside 100 billion naira for constituency projects of National Assembly members in the latest budget proposal. The projects under the heading Zonal Intervention Projects bring the total to 700 billion naira in the last 6 years. Now, there have been criticisms, agreements and disagreements with regards to should lawmakers should they bother themselves with constituency projects? What have we seen? Has it worked in the past? Can we justify the amount of money that's allocated to constituency projects? Should they just mind the business of enacting laws, holding the executive and legislature to account, or should they also at least do something for their community members?
Well, a little bit of background to this story. I think that the zonal intervention project was the idea of the was muted and executed, I think, in the second or third year of President Obasanjo's tenure as president. So that means that that should be about 2001 or 2002. Okay, so the idea then was that all federal lawmakers nominate a project that your people want, and then we will pass it on to the responsible ministry, who will put it in their budget and they will execute. Okay, beautiful idea on paper, but what do we get to see or hear? These projects are commissioned, the monies are given, nothing gets done, and we go to the next year, another one is nominated. And when you ask the federal lawmaker, this thing that you nominated last year, it has not been done. They will say, my job is just to nominate. Go and ask the ministry that is in charge. So if I represent you, and you say you need a hospital, and they approved the hospital to be built, and I was there when it was signed, and I did put my name on it, sponsored by Senator XYZ, and 1 year, 2 years, nothing has been done. Morally, does that not should I not hold myself responsible for ensuring that that gets done?
Absolutely.
We were here on this table a few weeks ago when we were speaking about a particular one in, I think, Delta State. A primary health center was nominated to be built.
Yes.
It was not built. Equipment for the hospital has been bought and was kept in a private facility. For crying out loud, where is the senator or the rep member who nominated that
I'm sure we can trace it.
who nominated that project? And this also comes back. There's an NGO who goes around, I can't remember the name now, who goes around the country looking for all these ZIP projects and having an education session with reps, with citizens of those places, to tell them that, look, it's your senator or your rep member who nominated this to be done here. The next time you see him, ask him, this is the amount. They also write on social media, quoting the name of the lawmaker, say that this ZIP project that you nominated, we visited it. It is at this stage of completion.
Yeah.
Blah blah blah. So we see that every day. So an NGO has taken it upon itself to highlight these things. Now the ball is now in the court of the people who are being represented to challenge these senators and these lawmakers to ensure that when they nominate a project as whatever it is, that they see it to completion. Otherwise, it is money down the drain.
Yes.
And we'll just be doing the same thing over and over again with no results.
Thank you very much. And I like what you said, where we as a people begin to hold our representatives accountable. There's too much emphasis on, oh, they, and we don't. And when you point, they say when you point one finger out, four others are pointing back. So I believe that as a people, we either provide an enabling environment or a disenabling environment for corruption to thrive, especially when we keep quiet and do nothing.
Absolutely.
Oshodi-Apapa Expressway mayhem in mile 2 as transport union members clash. Vanguard. Pandemonium broke out on Wednesday night as two warring transport union members engaged in a free-for-all at mile 2 area along Oshodi-Apapa Expressway over control of collection of fees from truckers. The warring transport union members are Road Transport Employers Association of Nigeria, RTN, and National Union of Road Transport Workers, NURTW. Motorists and commuters ran in different directions for safety as the weapon-wielding warring parties engaged themselves.
My heart goes out to all the innocent victims of this mayhem. Of course, because that's the best place to start. For whatever it is worth. Why then we ask ourselves, what is the worth of the human life to the average Nigerian? Why do we think that, okay, once we disagree about anything, the next thing is to fight, maim, kill ourselves over it? Now, this matter, it's all about money, control of territory. Okay, so if that is the case, RTN and NURTW are registered organizations in this country.
Yeah.
That means they have a leadership. They have people that are known, that can be sanctioned. That means that we know the chairman and the chairpersons and the executive of every branch of these organizations. So if you cannot identify the people on the streets who caused the mayhem, we can identify the leadership of these organizations. Can we get them in by the law enforcement and prosecute them on behalf of the people who caused the mayhem, unless they produce them? But of course we know, we will speak a lot of English about it. Innocent people would have been affected. Somebody who is driving home after a hard day's work will probably have lost his car. If he had not lost a head or an arm or even his life, and then we'll now speak a lot of English about it, and then we'll throw money about again to say compensation. But then tomorrow is going to happen again because nobody has been prosecuted for the one that has happened. And everybody thinks that they can get away with these things. We need to put a stop to these things. If we will not do it with sense, we can do it with force. I mean, we need to prosecute people. We need to get people to the table to understand that there are laws in this country and nobody's above the law. But these people keep acting like they are above the law, and that's why it keeps happening.
Thank you very much, Lakunle. We're not out of time, unfortunately. However, we'll continue these conversations as we do during Lagos Talks 981 in exactly 8 minutes. The NGO, like you mentioned, that tracks these ZIP, that's the constituency projects, is budget. So thank you to all our listeners who sent in the name. Thank you very much, Lakunle Yusuf. Lakunle Yusuf is at Lakunle70 on social media. We are at Smooth 981. Do follow us there, and also join me in 8 minutes to discuss these stories and more.
Union Bank, your simpler, smarter bank.
Thank you very much.
Wow.
The headlines.
Merci beaucoup.
These stories are...
In-depth analysis of national.
All right, see ya.
See you.
Freshly pressed on Smooth 98.1.